Line www.giftoftheneedy.com. Call 031 2713 Gift of the Needy, bringing ease to those in need.
MBC Parts has been a supplier of premium Mercedes parts for over 20 years, with staff that have the knowledge and expertise to provide you with the highest quality parts that are 50% cheaper than most Mercedes part suppliers to keep your Mercedes purring smoothly and efficiently all year round. Visit us at 79 Sydney Road, Durban, or shop online at mbcparts.co.za. We will courier to your doorstep. T's and C's apply.
The views and opinions expressed by the guest and presenters of Radio Al Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al Ansar and the Al Ansar Foundation.
The Breakfast Rush, brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation and one of the leading competitors in the South African FMCG market.
7:15 this morning, COSATU has joined the list of those condemning the withdrawal of the SABC Bill from Parliament. Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi withdrew the bill, saying it is flawed. He says it does not address the funding model of the public broadcaster and assigns too much power to the minister in appointing board members. Joining us this morning is COSATU Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks. Thank you for making time for us this morning. Good morning and welcome. Matthew, I think you've got your microphone muted still. Start again. Good morning, welcome.
No. I had unmuted it, but I think a colleague muted it. Yes, good morning. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure having you on board. Before we get your reaction, can we give a little insight, or can you give us a little insight into what the SABC bill actually is?
So it's a major overhaul of the existing legislation of the SABC. It does quite a few good, useful things. I think number one, it affirms that it's a publicly owned enterprise entity. It has a constitutional, developmental mandate to fulfill around public education, public broadcasting of national events like key sporting events. It also has a very clear role to support locally produced shows, local artists and musicians, our official languages as well, and really to kind of be a bit of a different broadcaster than, say, for example, a purely private broadcaster, whether it's the TV stations, whether it's the radio stations. It also does try to address some of the defects, the challenges that were experienced under the existing law, the Broadcasting Act, where you had previous ministers who sort of abused the position in terms of appointment of the board or in terms of interference with editorial content of the news division. So it tries to safeguard against that. So I think for us, those are quite useful things. But it does leave vacant what is a new funding model for SABC to ensure its financial sustainability. It gives the minister 3 years to provide that. So we're a little bit surprised, and the minister then chose to withdraw, saying he doesn't think it's constitutional, thinks it gives the minister too much powers, because in fact it reduces the powers of the minister quite significantly. And then it also just gave the minister space to find a new financial model. So it's a bit strange for us. Why did he then need to withdraw it when the bill gave him the space to come with a new financial model within 3 years?
Why is COSATU against the withdrawal of the bill?
Well, it takes about 5 years plus for legislation to get passed. This bill has been delayed twice within a year. SABC has still in a very fragile state. It has gone through a very difficult space of a decade of state capture, of corruption, of mismanagement, of underinvestment, underfunding. So it's in a still very, very fragile space. So withdrawing it further prolongs that potentially. SABC staff have gone through a very difficult time where a third of them were retrenched a couple of years ago, where staff until last year had not received an increase for a couple of years. So we just simply doesn't have the luxury of time to sort things out. The bill was in Parliament. It had already gone through public hearings. I think if the minister had wanted to strengthen it, that could be welcome. He should then easily just simply have tabled some proposed amendments to the bill so they could be incorporated during these parliamentary hearings. But to take it out, not to give a new time frame, it could be another couple of years before a new bill comes through. That's the one fear that will delay issues. We also fear that the minister could, for example, want to impose a DA manifesto commitment of dismantling SABC and privatizing it. And again, we think that would be illegal and that would go against this public broadcasting mandate.
The bill includes provisions to prohibit ministerial interference with the SABC's editorial content. How significant are these measures?
It's important. We mustn't take democracy for granted. During the dark days of apartheid, you had ministers broadcasting, phoning the SABC news studio to say what they can and cannot cover. That has not happened since 1994, but one should never take these things for granted. But we have had a few ministers seeking to misbehave. We had a previous minister a couple of years ago who wanted to remove the power to appoint the SABC board and take it upon herself. Unfortunately, Parliament rejected that. The ANC refused that nonsense. So I think for us, we want to just constantly see how do you enrich and strengthen democracy. And I think this bill does go significant and a positive way down the road in that regard.
Can you clarify COSATU's stance on the possibility of privatization or breaking up of the SABC as part of a new funding model?
So we would oppose that. SABC is different from a private radio station, it's different from a private TV station who have no legally binding mandate. There's a pure entertainment if they want to. They're free to choose what they want to do. SABC specifically says they want to play a public broadcasting role to make sure that working class communities have access to the key national sporting events, be it soccer, rugby, or cricket, to help play a public education role around important legislation, to promote our official languages. Many of them are historically still significantly disadvantaged, to promote local content, whether soapies or local community radio stations. And we think it is a viable model. SABC TV soap operas are extremely popular. SABC community radio stations, whether it's Mhlobo Wanene or it's Phala Phala, have got a huge footprint. It just needs competent management. It does need some smart advertising and so forth. But we think it can be made viable once again. But yes, it does need a new funding model because the existing one of TV licenses doesn't work. So there is a need for a new one, which makes sense for this day and age.
Absolutely. Final question is, if the bill is to be retabled, what specific amendments would COSATU like to see included?
So we're fine with the current content of the bill. We hope we will not see the DA's proposals of breaking up SABC or privatizing it included. That we would oppose. But under the existing Broadcasting Act, it specifically spoke to the need for people from Labour on the board. That's in line with South African practice of including representatives from key stakeholders, including workers. It's in line with international best practice too, whether you look in Germany or Japan, you look in Scandinavia. It's important to include workers because you help to address their grievances. The manager can know what are the challenges they experience before they become labor market strife. So you boost workplace productivity. It also helps for workers themselves to understand the challenges that the workplace is experiencing. So when you have, for example, wage negotiations, they can be much more effective. It helps to engender a sense of collective ownership of buy-in. And again, that helps to improve the productivity of the institution. And I think for us, workers have got a valuable contribution to make. SABC's greatest asset are its journalists, its TV crew, its production crew, and so forth. And we think, part of ensuring success is to ensure they too have a voice and a seat at the table.
Absolutely. Want to thank you for your time this morning and bringing valuable information to our listeners. Have a wonderful day going forward.
Thank you. You too.
That was COSATU's Parliamentary Coordinator, Matthew Parks, making time for us this morning on the Breakfast Rush and bringing us information with regard to the national carrier, I think they used to be known as, Ness?
I think, yeah. Aren't they still?
Yeah, once upon a time was a long time ago.
I was on Facebook yesterday and somebody tagged me on a post from, I think it was 15 years ago, maybe 17, I don't know, but back in those days I was working at the SABC.
Yeah.
And tagged me on a post there, and it was very nostalgic and talking about people listening in those days, interacting on those days. Right. And remember, all those days, all those years ago, there was no such thing as WhatsApp.
Yep.
You could send an SMS.
Yeah.
You could make a telephone call, or you could get pen and paper and write an actual letter, post it to the radio station. And that's how we worked, basically, back in those days.
And we did a lot of emails as well.
Yeah, there were a ton of emails.
Uh-huh.
There were a ton of emails.
I remember sitting refreshing, and you'd be like, wait, I just did 10, and now there's another.
It was so cool to see this. You know, it was there we go, got it open. 15 years ago, good old days is the way she framed it. Is on the 12th of November 2009. Nishal Sarwan, such an entertaining DJ as he has listeners calling in from. You know the thing about that? I still, till today, wonder about some of those folks that used to telephone.
Yeah.
Used to send WhatsApp messages, whatever the case may be. I still wonder because there was a guy that was a trucker.
Okay.
I remember his name, Daya the Trucker. That used to interact with not just me, a few others as well on the station. And it got to a point where he became a mate and he was always driving night shift.
Yeah.
So I gave him my cell number and Daya the Trucker became my alarm clock. He used to call me an hour before the show. How's it, but wake up. I'll call you back in an hour when you're in the studio.
Yeah.
You know? And I wonder, whatever happened to Daya the Trucker? Has he retired? You know, did he get his own truck one day?
You should find out. Try and
Wouldn't
track
know where to
him.
start. So anyway, that's a little bit of brief history for you. Whilst we were talking about the national carrier. 7:25, Naz comes back and tells you all about what to expect at Vodacom. Our set of Vodacom stores. This massive sale that started on the 7th of November and is heading all the way through to the 5th of December. There's no Black Friday. Not one day. Every day.
The